New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us again today. This is your host, Brother T, for another episode of True Thought Miracles, and I'm joined with my beautiful wife, Rev Renee. This is our third episode here on New Thought Media Network, and we're going to be discussing A Course in Miracles Original Edition. The text, the workbook, the manual for teachers, of course, is a combined edition, and a little bit different from the FIP version, but we can talk about that. We have talked about that, I think, in our first episode or two. But that's the issue that we're going to be working with as we continue to go forward. So I'm going to drop out this screen so you can kind of see who we are. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, my beautiful wife. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Hello, handsome husband. How are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back here on New Thought Media Network for this episode.
Me too.
Of A Course in Miracles, New Thought Miracles. True Thought Miracles.
True Thought Miracles.
True Thought Miracles, yeah. So we're going to be talking about this edition of the workbook, or the book, rather. Got to get my camera right. A Course in Miracles, original edition, as I said. And before we get started, I just want to say let's come together for a little bit of a pray-in. So I'm going to ask you to bring us together in prayer, Claudia, if you would.
Okay, wonderful. So if it's comfortable, just allow the body eyes to close. Turning away from the screen and the world of appearances and turning within to the infinite presence of the all that is, that power and that presence that is eternal, that is life, that is goodness, that is creator of all that is and creates of itself as love. Knowing that we are each an emanation of this divine intelligence and this infinite heart. And we just pause in this holy instant and connect with the Christ consciousness, the awakened mind within each of us. And as we take another breath and feel that presence, how good it is to know that we meet in the same place, the heart and mind of love. And from this energy, from this consciousness, I just bless this time together. It's a great conversation. It's filled with insight and serves in a greater understanding of this material and impacts our lives in magnificent ways. And I just bless Brother T and myself to be self-emptied and spirit-filled during this conversation, blessing all who hear and all who join us. Thank you, Mother, Father, God, Infinite Spirit. I release this blessing in this word. And I say, and so it is. And so it is.
And so Amen. It is. Beautiful and wonderful. Thank you.
Welcome. Love that.
All right. So if you've missed episode 1 or 2 in the beginning, we talked a little bit about our personal journey to the discovery of A Course in Miracles. And then we also talked about how A Course in Miracles came into existence. And so if you're eager to understand a little bit more about that, you can certainly find that. I also shared that you can get a copy of this book at online, and you can actually read it online as well for free. And that is you can go to jcim.net, jcim.net, N-E-T, and that's where you'll find the Course in Miracles Society version of this edition. And the differences between this and the blue book that's been circulated widely around the world, Foundation for Inner Peace version, is that this book has replaced about 25% of the content that was in the first 5 chapters or so that was removed early on for the FIP version. And so that's one of the reasons that we use this book. And our mentors, or I should say my mentors, and Claudia's is also brings us to using this edition, because there's some really rich content there that we think is beneficial. So that's the reason we use this edition, and you can use this edition to follow along, but the FIP version is pretty close, but you will notice that there's some material left out. So we also I want to say what we're going to be covering here at the New Thought Media Network is the textbook. The workbook lessons are 365 workbook lessons, and we do those on a podcast version every day. Today was lesson 111, and those are 112, and those are available on our website, and they're recorded there, and we post them daily, and you'll find them at truethought.org, truethought.org. And that's a great way for you to get access to those lessons. And what we do there is we read the lesson, and then we have commentary about that. And that's kind of what we're going to be doing here in the textbook. But we're also going to be addressing questions that are going to be coming from you. And from time to time, we may have some of our current and former Course in Miracles students join us here on New Thought Media Network, and we'll bring them into this conversation with us to share some of their questions and some of their insights from their studies from the past years that they've worked with us. And that's always beneficial. That's one of the things that's great about A Course in Miracles. You're in a group of people that are like-minded and have a similar understanding of what the Course is teaching. So
we would also like to invite you to send in any questions that you have as we are going along as well. And which email would they send that to?
They can just send that to info@truethought.org, info@truethought.org, and we will grab those, those emails and the questions that you have, and we'll be talking about them here. And so that's kind of cool. It makes it interesting. And
right,
also,
we're going to have these pre-recorded for a couple of weeks, and then at some point in the future, we're going to be live again, and we'll be able to interact more in that way too.
Yeah, and if you're watching this at our regularly scheduled premiere time, on New Thought Media Network, and it's being premiered, and the chat's going on over here or on Facebook, you can know that the team is going to be capturing those comments that you're leaving and questions that you're leaving, and we can look at those, and we can pick them up there as well. So that should be a pretty good way also for you to share your questions and comments with us. And we appreciate you joining our audience. Give us a thumbs up if you will, hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to New Thought Media Network. Okay. So we're going to actually begin from the beginning with the textbook, and there's actually a very short introduction, and we're just going to read that. Is there anything else, Claudia, that you'd like to share before we start there?
I just wanted to say that the lessons themselves are just so wonderful, and if you are new, it can be a great way to begin. And just to share, today's lesson, which is lesson 112, it works with the two statements that light and joy and peace abide in me, and I am as God created me. And so you can feel the resonance of those statements. Those are the statements that we brought forth today and in our discussion. And I just want to say it's one of the favorite parts of my day, in a wonderful way, to create a meditative practice, not only daily, but throughout the day. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I totally agree. And you will find that the workbook lessons, 365, they do support the textbook. And people ask me, where should I start, on the textbook or the workbook? And I almost always recommend the workbook lessons, but I say go within and ask your inner guidance system. That's what A Course in Miracles is about, is to let you know that you have an inner guidance system, and let that guidance system be your guide. How about that? And how do you feel? You know, you can flip through both of those sections of this combined volume. And if you feel comfortable with the textbook and you want to take it on, go for it. But if you feel drawn and compelled to take up the workbook lessons, I think that's a great place to start, because the workbook lessons really kind of set the tone and the vibration. We call it an attunement, but it's a great way to begin your day. And I think it's a great way to begin A Course in Miracles as well. So with that said, we're going to read the introduction. And again, we're just going to read some of this. And then as we are inspired, we're just going to be conversational. And we hope you'll be conversational with us as well. We appreciate you being here again. So thanks so much for participating. So tonight we're going to start with the introduction. We're right at the very beginning. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you may elect what you want to take at a given time. You want to share?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite.
This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And so it is. And when I see italics in the course, I usually note that that is an indication of a prayer, especially in the workbook lessons. You know, you'll find that there's italics there. And as you get deeper into the workbook lessons, almost every workbook lesson is a prayer, which makes it very loving and healing. And I love to read the workbook lessons. I just keep going back and forth between the textbook and the workbook lessons, and have done so for years and years. It's very, very comforting. So anything else before we move forward, my dear, that you want to share?
Well, we had talked about sharing the quote I love from the Gospel of Thomas. Can you share that with us?
Well, yeah, you know, the Gospel of Thomas was just recently discovered from a treasure dig, so to speak, you know, and it was thought to, it didn't know what, I think nobody even knew it existed. I think all of the issues of it had been, or copies of it had been destroyed way back hundreds of years ago. Maybe at the time of St. Augustine, I don't know, but anyway, that it came into being, and it's not included in the Bible, but it has now been printed and published, separate edition. And so the Gospel of Thomas, and so what Thomas did was basically wrote down, you know, the sayings of Jesus. And so he was with Jesus as one of the disciples, and sometimes he would write down what the disciples were saying to Jesus, and he didn't try to interpret it or, you know, give it meaning. He would just write it down. But so at one point, you know, the disciples had asked, when will we be at the end? You know, when will we know that we're at the end? And Jesus responded, of course, I'm paraphrasing it, but Jesus responded, "Oh, so you're at the beginning then, right? Because we must go back to the beginning." And that's really what this introduction is pointing to. You have to take this curriculum, because this curriculum, this teaching, this narrative, this language of truth takes you back to the beginning of when the idea, in A Course in Miracles, is called the tiny mad idea, when that idea began in the mind of the child of God. And we could call that the mind of Christ, the Christ consciousness, the child Christ, you know, but we're all one mind with that. And so in A Course in Miracles, what we do is we go from two-ness to eventually, you know, we go from duality, semi-non-duality, non-duality, and eventually pure non-duality. It takes us on a journey of levels of consciousness, really. And it in and of itself is a roadmap to oneness. So we kind of go from two-ness to oneness. And in this two-ness that we find ourselves now, we discover that our mind is split. And our mind is split between two thought systems. And we'll be talking about those quite a lot. But the two thought systems really are the thought system of the ego mind, the body-mind construct, we can call it that. We also call it the ego. Jesus calls it the ego a lot. And by the way, yes, this is a channeled work from Jesus. Go back to episode 1 or 2 when we were talking about how it came into existence. And this is a teaching from Jesus Christ. It was channeled through Helen Schachtman. And so he says, yeah, the mind is split. And that's why it says, love isn't something that can be taught, because you are love. You are the kingdom of heaven. It exists within you. And so we can't teach that, like we can't teach a cat to be a cat. It just is a cat, right? So this is very, very interesting as we begin to see how the mind works. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be going into a journey of a thought system, and we're going to discover for ourselves that there's another aspect of us that is the true self that is available. In A Course in Miracles, the Holy Spirit is our guide that kind of takes us through this journey. And Jesus, of course, is our guide as well. And they are interactive in their communication with us. And, that's kind of how we'll find it. We'll find our way through it. So go ahead.
So what I love about this, is that, one, it's a required course. We just select when we take it. It's already established. I think that's really important, and it establishes the goal and the purpose of this entire text, and it's to teach us from the world of duality, or from the split mind, where we believe there is two-ness, to that oneness, that only love is real, only love is real. And everything that we experience in that two-ness, anything that is of fear is not real. And that this love that is all that there is can never be threatened. And that kind of solves all the problems, really, because so much of what we do that becomes problems in our lives is the result of feeling threatened and feeling like we need to protect ourselves. And so nothing real can be threatened. The truth of who we are is love. That cannot be threatened. You cannot add or take away anything from that, and nothing unreal exists. And so we'll end up talking a lot about the concept and the idea of the dream and illusion. So right here we have the goal, as Brother T was saying, and it is to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is the only thing that is real. And so we're just clearing away the clutter that masks from our vision and our experience of what reality is, what is real.
Indeed. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So the introduction to Miracles is the first chapter, and it's really the first section in there is called Principles of Miracles. And there are 53 principles of miracles that Jesus shared. In the FIP version, there's 50. And so there you can see there's been a little rewrite going on, but we're just going to take these a little at a time, and we're going to try to keep these episodes each week down to about 30 minutes, because we don't want anyone to get overwhelmed. We have plenty of time to take on the course, and we don't have to be in a big hurry, and it'll begin to work with you. And that also, hopefully, we hope that'll leave you some time to maybe go to truethought.org and work on the A Course in Miracles workbook lessons as well. You'll find those very supportive in the teaching. Also, the coursework is circuitous. In other words, just like we were reading from the Gospel of Thomas, or our story from the Gospel of Thomas, it keeps taking you around and around, from the beginning to the end, the beginning to the end. In other words, the same story is being talked about right here in the beginning is what we're going to find in the latter chapters. And it's just one problem. It's a very simple teaching. It's one of the simplest teachings. One of my mentors used to say, this is the simplest teaching you'll ever have, because there's only one problem, and therefore there's only one solution. And that's even, brought forth in the workbook lessons as well. So we've got a lot to share with you, and a lot of it is really good news, but we're also going to be kind of wading into self-discovery about that split mind aspect, how part of our mind is really still connected with God, still connected with love, still connected with spirit, and another part of our mind is kind of believes itself to be split off and separated as a separated self. And how we got here, we're going to discover how we got here. We're going to discover a little bit about why we came here, so to speak, into this experience of form. And we're going to discover a little bit about how to go home. And it's not an experience that we have after death. It's actually an experience that we have here in the experience of form. And I'm sometimes, I have fun with some of my students by suggesting that you can watch the movie Jumanji, and in that movie, it's kind of a comedy kind of movie thing, but and one of these later recent editions of it are, and so these guys are playing. They find themselves playing a game, but when they play the game, they get in it. They actually become characters, real characters in the game. And what they realize is they can't get out until they solve the riddle, till they, discover the solution, to the game. And that's really kind of where we are until we actually solve the riddle of why we came here and what we're doing here. We begin to realize that we can't get out of it. In other words, we're kind of stuck in this illusion, if you will, of separation. And so when I first met my wife, Claudia, I used to tell her, I said, I just want to get off the planet. How do we get off the planet? Because once I began to think following Buddhist principles, and they're not refuted at all in A Course in Miracles, and we'll be talking about it, about reincarnation. Is it possible that we're being reincarnated? Once I really began to accept that we are being reincarnated, or even if we might be being reincarnated, or maybe even if I'm just being reincarnated, I don't want to go back to the first grade again. I don't want to keep doing this over and over. And so how then would I avoid being, recycled again and again into this incarnated experience? What's necessary? And actually, that was a goal that came up before A Course in Miracles came into my life. And then once I kind of established that as that's what I want to know, because I was studying Buddhism before that, of course, that's when A Course in Miracles did come into my life and began to help me to see that pathway home that Jesus has been credited for as I am the way, I am the light, I am the life. And so this is a very powerful, very important work that you're doing if you're following along here with us in A Course in Miracles. Whenever you take it, as we just told you in the introduction, it's a required course. Everyone's going to eventually have to figure out this riddle, so to speak, of this game we call life here on the planet Earth. And when we do, and when you do, then you become free. As Buddha said, when he was asked if he was enlightened, he laughed and replied, I am the dreamer of the dream. I'm free, basically. And once you realize that you're the dreamer of the dream. And so that's a little bit about what this is about. You want to make a comment?
Sure. When you realize that you're the dreamer of the dream, and then you realize that you have volition, that you get to choose. And one of the transformations or shifts that I experienced with you is when we first met, you wanted to vibrate off the planet, you used to say. And I'd be like, yeah, I want to hang out and have fun and create and whatever. And now you're like, I want to be awake. I want to live the awakened consciousness, the Christ consciousness, be that embodiment of it in a lived experience. And that's
Mhm.
what we talk about
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad you
definitely.
stay for a while.
Yeah. And I've told people, I'm like, I'm sure I'll be right back now, because I find now that there's so much love here and so much love to be embraced and shared. And so many of us need help to find this curriculum, to find this pathway, that I'll be raising my hand and, I'm coming right back. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be
So,
that elevated self of form, in form,
right.
it's like when Jesus would say, when you see me, you see the Father. See, he was the elevated self of form.
Yeah. You had mentioned to me that there was a personal story that you wanted to tell. Is that something you want to do in this episode yet? I realize we have like really just 5 minutes left, and not sure we're really going to get into actually reading the miracles, the principles of miracles, but I wanted to ask you that and thought that we could just talk about, what our concept of miracles are, and maybe begin the actual reading next time. What do you think?
That's probably a good idea, because we've taken up quite a bit of time, but that's the fun about this, and the way I love to do it is to not have a big plan, to just allow it to unfold and to be conversational and organic, and to grow naturally. And that's why when you bring questions, we'll get to share those questions and, unpack your questions. And especially if you've got something going on in your life, is like, how does the Course in Miracles deal with this? Right.
Yeah.
And I say that in no light terms here, because we've had many students who have had experiences of miracles. I've certainly had experiences of miracles. I know that you have, Claudia, and that's what this is about. This is miracles. So, what are miracles? You want to talk about
And
that?
so I would suggest too that whoever's listening, everyone has experienced miracles. Maybe they just don't know it in this context. So we're going to start to say two things. So the way that you teach, and I've been teaching with you for a while, is that you prefer to connect and go into the material and allow spirit to guide, which is really a demonstration of the holy instant, which is what we teach here in A Course in Miracles. And so how I like to teach is I like to have the agenda, and I like to know where we're going. And so that's something that we've had to, kind of work with. And so it's been really interesting, because one of the principles in A Course in Miracles is that planning is an attack, or
A defense.
it's a defense, excuse me, that planning is a defense. And so having that willingness to truly, moment by moment, yes, you do your prep work, yes, you kind of have an agenda to do, but that you're always releasing it and letting it go, allowing the self to be guided in the moment. And so that's a lot of what we do, the way that we teach as well, which is why the interaction of the audience is so helpful to bring those questions to us.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
So since we've already talked a lot and shared a lot, and we've asked, the group at New Thought Media Network to give us an hour, because sometimes we'll run over. We want to try to keep it within half an hour, but if we go a little over, I'm sure they'll be forgiving. But I just want to say I share this short story pretty quickly, and then we'll just kind of wrap it up. But we will be talking about the principles of miracles next week. And if you want to go ahead and get online and read it and begin there, and bring your questions about it, let us know. Remember to reach out to us at info@truethought.org. We probably won't get through more than 1 or 2 pages at the most on any one of our sessions, if even that. So you don't have to read too far ahead, but if whatever you're feeling resistance with, or whatever you're feeling isn't clear for you or challenging for you, send us some email and let us know, and we'll address it here in our conversation each week. So this goes back about 30 years ago, and I wanted to go to a sailing class because I was interested in sailing. And I went up to Lake Charlevoix in Michigan for this weekend. It was like 3 or 4 days. I think we got up there on Wednesday, and it was going to go through Saturday. It was 3 or 4 days, and we were actually literally going to be on boats on the water. And I was so excited to get there, and I was really conditioned about time and planning and agendas and expectations. And so I arrive at the location, and when I got there, I'm just like at this little park, like it was almost like a beach, but it really wasn't a beach, but I guess it was, but it was just a park right on the edge of the water. And there's nobody around. There's nothing there. And I'm just standing there, and I'm the only one there. And I'm like, what kind of deal is this? You know, how does this work, right? I'm there at the appointed time. Is this where I'm supposed to be? I mean, there's nothing else here. This is really strange. And I'm tapping my toe, you know, and I'm pacing the ground, and I'm walking up and down the little beach there. And suddenly I hear this little pontoon boat, you know, a motorboat, a dinghy is what it was, coming up, you know, and it comes up, and it comes right up to where I'm at. And this guy gets out, and he said, "Are you Tony?" And I'm like, "Yeah, so, you know," and I'm upset by that point. I'm really upset because I have preconceived ideas about the way things are supposed to be, right? And I'm judging everything at that point. I'm judging, who is this guy? You know, what kind of deal is this? Am I wasting my money? And I said, you know, I finally spoke my mind, and I said, you know, I've been standing here for blah, 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 you know, and I thought I was supposed to. He said, "Oh, we don't do time here." And I went, "Oh, okay, right, all right." I mean, that was a paradigm shift for me. And through that week, he became a great friend. He was actually the owner of this big 45-foot power boat, and he had a 32-foot, not a 32-foot, it was a 28-foot sailboat, and he was moored and powered out there, anchored off, and we became great friends. And he was the captain, and he was the teacher and the captain, and I learned a lot from him. Later in life, I bought a beautiful sailboat and sailed on Lake Erie. So, you know, the whole point of the story is planning you know, A Course in Miracles says, you know, planning is a defense, and we need to let God be what God is. Just let God be what God is. And so if you want us to go faster, that's something you need to think about. Why, right? If you want us to go slower, you know, let us know, and we'll try to fill in the blanks and help to, you know, build a resources for you. So for anyone that feels like we're going too fast, but we're going to go at the pace that we feel guided by Spirit. And that's what A Course in Miracles is about. It's about turning within, taking that good deep breath. We call it the holy instant. We turn within and say, what is the truth? How can I be of service? How can we be of service? And so before we begin each week, we come together, my wife and I, and we say, how can we be in service to you in this community, the New Thought Media Network community? And how can we be in service to our community, True Thought community, True Thought Spiritual community? So it's truethought.org is how you find us. So that's my story, and that's where I'll leave that. So
I love it. I didn't know what story you were going to tell, so thank you for sharing that. It was perfect, because sometimes you and I have a little friction there, because I do tend to, you know, and what's the curriculum, what's the plan, and the curriculum is this teaching, and is the holy instant, and is to be Spirit led. And so the encouragement for everyone here is, to begin to read the Principles of Miracles, and you know, how we simply define a miracle as a sudden shift of perception. And so as you read through those, you know, contemplate it, sit with it, ask Spirit to teach you, ask that inner guidance system to teach, and then we'll come together next week. And the plan right now is that we will discuss Principles of Miracles, and probably get through a bunch of them together.
We will.
Or not.
We'll see how we're guided by spirit when we get there.
Exactly. And again, we welcome your questions, but in the meantime, I think it's a good time to close. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a really good time.
All right. And so what we like to say here is, ready? Stay the course.
Stay the course.
Stay the course. We'll see you next Friday. Join us for our daily lessons. And anything else you want to say, beloved?
No, that's really what it's all about. Just stay devoted and dedicated. All it requires is a little willingness. And if you get tripped up or you feel challenged by this, just stay with it and take what you will. You don't have to agree with any of it. Let it begin to settle with you. Over time, you'll find that it's a warm embrace indeed.
Yes. And so with that warm embrace, we just say blessings upon all who are within the vibratory field of this conversation and beyond, and have a beautiful week.
God bless. Stay the
God
course.
Stay the course.
All right.